What's up, everybody? It's your boy David, and it's time for some Necrons. 9th edition 40k just dropped, and I had to buy into this set. The new Primaris Marines are just absolute badasses, and the new Necron minis are gorgeous. Since this new edition is going to have a much bigger focus on the Necrons, I decided it was time to start up a series of videos for making Necron-appropriate terrain. Today's video with these Necron pylons is going to be the first in a whole month's worth of Necron content. New builds are going to be coming every week, shooting for Thursday uploads at the moment. So with that said, let's get to it. The biggest thing you're going to need to build these for yourself is these kids pattern blocks. I use the trapezoid pieces as a base and stacked shapes on top with a bit of super glue. I opted for the foam version of these pieces over the plastic version, so I could cut the larger shapes down as I needed. Teaching supply stores or Amazon should have these readily available. I made over 24 of these different pylons with the set that I got for $10 off Amazon. I'll put a link for that down below. After gluing, I hit the pieces up with a sanding sponge real quickly on the sides. This was mostly to knock off any superglue bubbles that had dried there. To even out the minor differences in thickness, as well as start adding some more texture, I grabbed a container of dollar store spackling. I smeared this on, starting with the cracks on the sides. After drying, which is pretty fast with thin layers, I quickly sanded off any chunky bits. I used my fingers when applying the spackling to the thin sides. This let me really work it into the porous surface even though there was less surface area to stick it to. After cleaning that up too, it was on to basing. I wanted to have uniformity for the basing across all the pylons as well as the rest of the Necron terrain that I'm making this month. So I actually busted out my chipboard for this project. I cut 3x3 and 3x2 inch bases, depending on the pylons. Then I rounded the edges with a set of dollar store garden shears. Before mounting to the bases, the larger pylons got a pair of triangles to add some stability on the bottom. Then all the pylons got glued onto their bases, and I gave them all a quick black magic base coat to help stiffen them up. I normally like to use cheap running super glue for flocking because it's sturdy and just fast as hell. But since I wound up making 26 pylons for this build, I figured it was a good time to get in some practice with a more conventional basing method. I painted the bases with some watered down PVA glue, put on a few pieces of aquarium gravel, sprinkled on some medium sand, and then finished up filling the surface with a fine grit sand. After letting that dry for a few hours, I went in for a second coat to thicken up the basing. For the second round, I started by putting wet water on the existing sand. This is a common railroad modeling trick, and it's basically a 50-50 mix of water and rubbing alcohol. This reduces the surface tension for when you put the PVA glue on afterwards. After the second layer of glue, I sprinkled on some more of the mixed sand, and once again, let everything dry for a few hours. Next, I superglued a few pieces of aquarium gravel on the top layer. To keep the top layer secure, I did one final layer of glue, but I tried something new here. I mixed my remaining wet water directly with some PVA glue and a bit of black paint. It worked great here and also worked well for basing the Necron warriors I speed painted to go with these pylons. I'm not sure yet what the best ratio is, but I'll keep experimenting and update y'all on how it works over the next few videos. After a quick round of black primer to get everything the same shade, I started in on painting. I used a metallic black craft paint as a base coat on the pylons and the sand, to turn the pieces from nifty ancient civilization ruins into something more straight up Necron looking. I started in on my glow effects. For starters, I edged all of the shapes with these target metallic markers. A piece of cardstock cut to size worked nicely as a straight edge for some internal lines too. After adding some line work to all of the pieces, I cleaned up any oopsies with the metallic black again. I wanted my bases to look like the sand was from dark volcanic glass or the like, so I did a quick dry brush with a slightly lighter metallic. Then I hit up the larger aquarium gravel with a medium green. Following this was the glow effects proper, something I haven't had a ton of practice with prior to this project. I gently dry brushed a light green on the edges and over the line work. This method does work pretty well, but if you're doing over 24 pieces, definitely think about doing smaller batches or doing some airbrushing. I also hit the glowing rocks on the bases with this dry brush, and after this I repeated the process to a lesser degree with a light yellow, and finally cleaned up the messy bits with the metallic black again. And that is the finished project. For $10 worth of foam shapes and some sand, this wound up being a lot of terrain. Which brings me to a few lessons learned. First, don't make this many pieces at one time with this method. I enjoy batch painting my projects, and even I was burning out doing that on these. After literally 10 hours of dry brushing the same color in one sitting, I started to get a little bit lax and a little bit messy. This in turn increased the amount of cleanup with black I needed to do, which muted the glow effect a bit more than I wanted. Still, I think it didn't turn out badly for me not having done freehand glow effects before this. If you're planning to do freehand stuff like this, I recommend batches of maybe 4 to 8 pylons at a time to help avoid burnout on any given step. Another point of interest was the basing. I still hate the wait times needed with PVA glue versus super glue, but it is arguably more cost effective if you're filling a table instead of just doing a few pieces. That said, the wet basing glue that I mixed up does seem like it has potential. Now, for a final note, you could easily make terrain of this style with other materials. For example, a few layers of foam core could be cut into similar shapes. That said, gluing pre-cut shapes together versus planning out and cutting exactly what you want, both are viable. I just chose this one for this project because it's faster and simpler. Given that I would have been looking at $2 to $3 worth of foam core versus $10 worth of foam shapes, to me that $7 is worth a few hours of time difference, at least in this case. I also think that this method with some minor variations could make for some really cool stuff for other game universes too. For example, mostly omitting the glow effect, but adding in some textured paint could make some really cool classic Halo Forerunner architecture. And folks, that's it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed and maybe figured out a few things to avoid or improve on too. More Necron videos coming up every week for this August. So, until next time, stay safe, sane, and crafty out there, and I'll see you in the next video.